Many agile teams, especially new ones, tend to add too many defects to their backlog. And this, of course, makes the backlog harder to manage. But not to worry, there is an easier way. In this video, I'll show you the smart way to manage bugs in an agile workflow so that you can improve software quality, reduce the number of defects in your backlog, and make reporting on known issues or anomalies a breeze. In agile development, the team is going to find bugs in one of two ways. They're either going to find the bugs themselves in the sprint during development, or they're going to have the bugs reported to them outside of the sprint by external testers, by end users, etc. And the first trick to managing bugs in an agile workflow is to find as many bugs in the sprint as possible. Now that may seem obvious because our goal is always to find bugs as early as possible. We learned that a long time ago. But here's how it helps in Agile specifically. If your team is using the done is done mindset and you're doing as much work as possible, including as much testing as possible during the sprint, then anytime an issue is found, whether by a developer during code review, by the product owner during validation testing, or by a tester during verification testing, instead of creating a bug in the backlog, you simply need to move that issue back to in progress. You don't need to create bugs in the system for an issue that has never reached the done column yet. You simply declare the issue as not done yet, and you continue reworking until your tests pass. And this simple strategy alone will dramatically reduce the number of bugs that actually make it into the backlog without sacrificing any quality. And so after your developers are done reworking whatever issue was reported, you simply move it back to testing. You complete your testing, and if this time everything passes, instead of moving it backwards, you move it forwards to approval. A similar strategy for managing rework in sprint, instead of moving the entire issue back to in progress, you can instead create subtasks to track on rework. For example, your product owner might see a feature demo and suggest that you improve the UI. And then once these subtasks are complete, you know that all the rework is complete and you can move this forward for approval. So that's the smart way to manage bugs in sprint. Just track them as rework and don't even create formal bugs in the system. This strategy works for any bug that is found in sprint and is related to the story that is being developed. But sometimes the team finds bugs that are related to another story or that they want to defer as future work. In these cases, you'll still need to create a new bug and add it to your backlog so that you can triage it, prioritize it, and schedule that future work accordingly. And the same is true for any bug that is reported to the team by external testers or by end users or through any activity that is happening out of sprint. So how do we triage new bugs that are added to the backlog? The best way is by having a triage workflow prior to your actual bug fixing workflow. What does that look like? The way that works is to have all new bugs come in at a new unreviewed status. And when a new bug is reported, the team can go into a triage workflow. Once the bug is in triage, this is where the team can review it, determine if it's a valid defect, assess the severity and the priority, and determine whether or not it's an acceptable bug to release with. Once that triage is complete, you can then submit it for a review, not necessarily for signatures, but for a peer review where the rest of the team can ensure that they agree with the severity and the priority. Once the review is complete, the bug can go into a to-do status. Now, what's the value in doing this triage workflow? Well, this is the key to effectively reporting on known issues or known anomalies at release time, especially in an agile environment where you may be working on multiple releases in parallel, different releases in different stages in your pipeline. And so now you can use JQL to report on all the bugs in your project at release time and ensure that all of them have been dispositioned and none of them are in a new state, in a triage state, or in a review state. In this example, we can see that I still have one bug that is pending review, which means I am not able to release yet. Now, some people push back on this idea of having a triage workflow because it feels like more work. It makes the defect workflow look more complicated than it needs to be. And I disagree with that because triaging is something you have to do anyway. It's not actually creating more work. is just making that work more reportable, which is key at release time when you need to report on the defects that are still open in a given release and whether or not they have been dispositioned or whether or not they are still unreviewed. And that's it. We just reviewed 2 smarter strategies for managing bugs or defects in an agile workflow. The first strategy is to detect as many issues as possible during your in-sprint testing and managing those as rework to the original story instead of as separate bugs. That keeps your backlog much cleaner. The second strategy was to implement a triage process for the defects that are reported out of sprint or will be deferred till after the sprint, and using that triage process to manage which defects have been dispositioned, which ones have not, and thus making your known issues or known anomaly reports much easier to generate and much more accurate at release time. I hope you found this video helpful. If you'd like to see more, go to www.agile-innovations.tech. Thanks for watching.